Hey there, welcome to Contracts and Chaos. My name's Alyssa.
And I'm Brenna, and we're here to tell you that you are not alone in the mayhem of this real estate industry.
We're keeping it real and sharing our stories, strategies, and successes in today's real estate world.
So come join us every Tuesday while we talk contracts and chaos. Nice. All right. Well, let's see if we can do that. Well, luckily, nobody's going to know how good the first
Right?
one was. I don't remember it. They'll just know how great this one is because seller consultations are super important. Um, and I feel like so many people could do them better. I've got recently, and this is cool too because I know that if we recorded it when we were supposed to, I've gone on a couple of listing appointments since then after other agents, and they're like, this is what I was given. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay.
So, what were
Okay.
they
We can
given?
work with that, I
Now I'm
guess.
curious,
But
what was the bad thing?
so, so it's just like, I feel like maybe I over prepare at that point. Like, one had a literal, like, legal pad sheet of paper that had like three addresses written out on it with closed prices. But when I pulled, I was like, those aren't comps that I used. And when I pulled those addresses up, they closed over 6 months ago. They're the closest comps, but they're the farthest, and they wouldn't be used because there are other more recent also comparable properties. You know what I
Right. So,
mean?
I
Like,
will defend
they
the
would not pull those.
right, and I will defend the over 6 months because I have a potential listing coming up and nothing in that neighborhood has sold. People move into that neighborhood and they never leave. And the one house that is for sale sold when we bought this one in 2021. And like literally we toured it. It was one of her
Mm-hmm.
options. And she was like, nah, it's too big. I don't like the layout. But to find a floor plan that matched hers in that neighborhood, I had to go back almost 2 years to see. I was like,
Yeah. Well, listen, when you have to go back, you have to go back. But if I had six comparables on
yeah,
that property that were all within the last 3 months, and it was built in 2020, so like that whole little ring around the loop
yeah,
there, they're all exactly the same houses, you know. So I don't like I just didn't understand the disconnect there.
right.
So I was like, I don't know, but no, I come with all my bells and whistles, and I've actually started implementing a fun new pre-listing presentation.
Oh.
So
Okay, why don't you tell us?
that's been
So, guys, we're talking
yes.
today about listing presentations because a couple weeks ago we talked to you
Mm-hmm.
about trying to get 100 listing appointments. And this episode was supposed to post right after that, but somehow our recording got lost. So, today we're talking about what to do
So sorry.
once you get that appointment so you're not the agent walking in the door with a legal pad with three addresses written on it and nothing else. That just blows
Mm-hmm.
my mind. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so what's your Brenna?
Yep.
Why don't we start with this? It's kind of off script here, off plan. What's your pre-listing thingy bobber? Tell me about this.
So sometimes it's hard to get actually in the door, right? And we've talked about our home equity report boxes and things like that we do. This is a somewhat digital copy of that, but the kicker for this for me, and I've sent this out one, two, three. I've sent it out 3 times now, and I have two of those listings
Nice.
already. Yes. But what's cool is it's through an online platform, and I it has like a cover photo. It's got like my my face, my business photo, but I can add in different things. So I have my seller staging guide in there. I have terminology for sellers in there. I have a shortened version of my home equity report in there. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And I say right because you can write notes next to everything that this is a computer generated number. I need to meet your house before I can finalize this and give you my range of where I would like to list your property. And the best part about all of this, as soon as I send it, if they open it, I get a notification that says so and so is viewing your presentation. I can see that they opened the staging guide, how long they spent looking at the staging guide, or if they've opened just the home equity report, like that kind of thing. Like, and then when I go to meet them in person, I know what's more important to them based on if they looked at the CMA. Like, or the current days on market, that kind of thing. Like, I know what's important to them because I can see that they've spent 17 minutes pouring through the recent comps that I sent them versus 2 minutes looking at the days on market.
I love this. I'm going to dig.
Yeah,
I want to
it's
know what
cool.
platform you use. You're going to have to tell me later because that's a great idea. Because I can leave a box at a door and I don't know what they're looking at. But this platform, I love that it gives you the
Hmm.
feedback of, okay, here's what they looked at. Like, so you, like you said, you know what's important to them. Because if I walk in spewing numbers to a seller who's more concerned about the fact that her daddy built this house and she wants it to look good and it's an emotional transaction for her, I'm not going to get that
Yep,
listing. Like, this reads the room for
absolutely.
you. I
And
love it.
like, I love the boxes. I have done the boxes for a while now. The home equity reports, they work really well. The problem is I don't know what they've looked at. Some of them are like, oh, I looked through everything. I love it, right? But this, I know exactly what they've looked at, and then I can follow it up with a in-person copy, and that's what I've been doing. Like, hey, this is what I'm going to get you because you want this information pretty quickly,
Right.
right? And then I'm going to stop in on Friday and give you the box that I like to give, but in the meantime, this is going to give you something to browse through essentially. And I just feel like people are like, oh wow, like this is a lot of information up front and you're already providing value. And then to show up with a gift box is just
Yeah.
feel like that's pretty extra and they
I
like
love
it.
it. I love it.
Seller presentations are important, and Alyssa and I were actually at a new construction well, it's supposed to be 101, but really we didn't learn much about new
No,
construction itself, which was super cool
I
actually.
asked him not to do that,
I,
but we had to advertise it
I
that way
loved
so he
that.
didn't get in trouble with the builder. And it was like, I tried to put in the description of the event what we were actually talking about without saying it. And I was like, I don't know if people are picking up on this, but whatever.
Mm, right, right. But one of the things that he said was the three T's, and I really loved that. So you've got traffic, talent, and technique, is what he said. And I feel like the importance of seller presentations, as far as that goes, is your technique in that aspect. 2020, we had all the traffic in the
Yeah.
world. Agents were getting business that maybe they didn't work for, maybe they didn't deserve, that kind of thing, because there was so much traffic. It didn't matter who was listing or what was listed because there was somebody out there looking. And then talent, of course, we've kind of narrowed it down a little bit to people who are actually working the business. But what's going to set you apart when you're going and talking to a seller and they're interviewing three other agents is the technique and the approach that you have, because it's just like a first impression. You don't get a second chance at that.
Exactly. Because
So that's why I think they're important.
you could set the 100 listing appointments. But if you walk in with a legal pad and nothing else, you're not going to get you might get, in my opinion, one or two because people don't know any better,
Hmm.
or you've run into the old man who that's how, he's run his business on the back of a napkin for the last 45 years. Perfect. But the
Yep.
odds of that being the winning game plan are not in your favor. So that's where
Yep.
that technique comes into play. Absolutely. Um and I think the like part of that technique that comes into play is building that rapport. Like you said, your pre-listing presentation or like email that goes out, it helps you figure out how to approach them. What are they favoring? What's important to them? So, like I said, if you walk in and it's a little old lady whose dad built this house and this is an emotional thing for her, and all you're talking about is numbers and days on market, you're not going to be the agent she probably picks unless she didn't know who else to call, because that's not what's
Hmm.
important to her. What's important to her probably is things that will, I'm going to say quiet part out, probably things that are going to violate the equal housing laws, because she's going to want the love letter. She's going to want to know it's a family. So you have to be able to read that room and build that rapport while showcasing your expertise to get that listing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And again, with like that specific email, like the feedback that I get from that, it also allows me to know who's serious, right? So I've started using it for buyer pre-consults as well, like buyer intake and things like that. Like if they look through all of it and they watch the videos that I've recorded and things like that, like they're excited, they're serious. Like if I've sent it and it's crickets and they haven't texted me back in 2 weeks, like, it goes back to your 5-star prospects. Like if they're not even willing to engage or have a conversation with you, then maybe don't spend that much time on follow up with them. Keep an eye on it, you know what I mean? But it also helps you, and that's just a preparation piece. Like if you're putting so much time into trying to connect with this one person that isn't interested, you're just shortchanging yourself to be able to present to another seller. And knowing what to present, and knowing, like you said, to read the room, because preparation is going to be very different for different types of people. You've got to have, I mean, even for the warm and fuzzy people, you have to know your
Oh,
market. I feel like
absolutely.
that's very important. Um, and like hyper local market. And I think part of the reason, so I know who the agent was specifically, and it's a huge team in Charlotte. So I was even more surprised at that. But I think it's because it's so outside of like their
Right.
box. You know what I mean? Like you're good where you're good. Like you know what you know. Like if you're traveling an hour and a half to my neck of the woods, maybe you don't have the information or know the details of things that I guess I
Right.
would. So having that information, because they're going to ask. Oh, because they see the houses that are selling really quick and everyone just assumes that they're still moving. That's not always the case. It's just not.
Right. And like they may have also assumed that, hold on, I got to take a note here. They may have also assumed, because maybe they are one of those big teams with a billboard and everyone knows their face or their team leader's face, that they just had it. That they were just going to walk in and boom, we're on so and
Right.
so's team. We get all of our listing appointments. Well, that's also not going to work, guys. Like, you have to put the work in. So, and I think part of that work and what you were just saying is that preparation, is knowing that market. Even if it is 30, 40 minutes away, an hour away, but you still land in this listing, do the research. If you have a day or two until that listing appointment, you should probably be out there at a minimum an hour before, driving around to familiarize yourself with it. Know the local businesses. Join some of the Facebook groups so that you know what's happening. Because if you are at a point where that is how broad your business is because of your location, like you're not someone like us who is near a big city and can dial it down because there's so many people, you need to do that research. You need to know that it's not the 4th of July parade everyone in that town gets excited for. It's the Strawberry Fest in April. Like, that's their thing. I almost said that's
Right.
their jam. That would have been clever.
That would
That
have
would have
been
been
good. That would have been
perfect.
good. Good job.
But at least do that to familiarize yourself on top of knowing what's happening in the market there. That's my opinion.
Along with that too, and I don't. No, I agree. And the other thing you said, like a day or two before the listing appointment, if somebody is like, "Come list my house this afternoon,"
Right.
no, mm-mm, no. You need to give yourself some time. You need to be able to prepare, because you're like, oh yeah, I'll be there in 30 minutes.
Yep.
Are you kidding me? Listen, I gotta tell you a story. My second listing ever, I was cold calling, and the gentleman that answered the phone, he was like, "Yeah, well, we're meeting with agents today at 3. If you can be here by 2, we'll talk to you too. But we're making a decision tonight." And I'm like, "Huh, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, right?" Like I'm like, I can do this. I can get, and I did. I got all of my information together. I researched everything possible, and I went out there and I got the listing. I did. Should I have? I mean, I was very well prepared, so
Right.
probably. But like the point is, you need to give yourself that space. And also, like if you just seem to be like, "Oh yeah, pop, I'm there. Absolutely. Give me 5 minutes." Do real like busy businesses work like
No.
that? No. Do you like show up at your dentist and say, "I'll be there in 10"? You know what I mean? Call them, say, "I need you here." No, that make an
Right.
appointment. That's great. I'm so excited to come out and check out your house. Let me update some of the information that I already have available for your property. And let's talk about it on Thursday. Does Thursday at 1 o'clock work for you? You
Right.
know,
Or if it
it's not
is,
the end of the world unless they're like, we're listing tonight and you need to get here
right.
or else. But that doesn't happen very
No,
often.
I can't say I've ever, I'm trying to think back to my most recent listings. I can't say I've ever had someone be like, you have to be here now, or you have to be here in 24 hours. Like maybe 24 hours. I've probably done a 24-hour turnaround, but never like same day. Actually, that reminds me, I need to call this listing that wants to go live by the end of the month so we can meet and get things rolling because they are moving out this weekend. Um, yeah,
Nice.
right, right. I'm excited about it. Um, and I just got my first yes, but no, first repeat listing. Like not first repeat client. I've had people buy or sell with me after, but her townhouse was my first listing. Her purchase was my first purchase, and now we might sell the purchase in a couple weeks. So,
Nice.
that's nice. So that's fun. That just proves that staying in touch with people
Uh-huh.
with silly little things like birthday cards and like commenting on their social media works. But back to listing
Uh-huh.
appointments. Um, we've kind of touched on this, but like crafting your pitch. So you shouldn't come in like a Cutco salesperson with like a laid out boom, bing, 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 bing. It needs we've touched on the rapport. Like obviously you need to read the room, see what type of people these are like, but you also need to like have your pitch practiced, but I wouldn't say perfected because I don't want it. You
Uh-huh.
don't want it to sound, in my opinion, like a Cutco salesperson. You want to walk through their house first, ask them what their favorite parts are. So then you can, if you need to, especially if you've never met them before, if this was from a cold call, adjust your approach. Ask the questions you need to know so that as you're flowing through these conversations, you have what you want to say, but it may not come in the same order that you initially planned it out to be. Um, and
Right.
try to always, like, my big thing is,
I think that's
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was just gonna say that I feel like a script has to be, you have to know your script, your presentation enough to be able to bounce around. You know what I mean? If you have to go through a slide presentation and page by page, and that's the only way that we can get through this, it comes across really
Yeah,
staged,
and really stiff. Like,
in my
this, no matter what they say, even if they are the numbers person, this is still a relationship building business. And so if you're, like you said, if you're flipping through that book or that slideshow on your laptop and you're not able to pivot or deviate from that, then we need to practice this some more. And what I would recommend is do some role playing. I know it weirds people out. It's not my favorite thing, but even if worst case you don't want to do it with other people in the office or whoever, call your mom, call your dad, call your sister. Heck, I would call my 5-year-old nephew and be
Mhm.
like, nephew, let's talk about houses because a 5-year-old will take you for a left turn before you know it, and you've got to figure out how to get them back on track. Actually, I might call my 5-year-old
Mhm.
nephew and practice with him because he literally would. He'd be like, well, does it have a
It's
playground?
a good
I like
idea.
cheese. And I'd have to figure out how to bring him back
Yeah.
into, okay, tell me about your house. I think the most
Yeah.
important thing
Exactly.
is stay positive. I've had some
Mhm.
listings that were some doozies. That, the one that's coming to mind, I felt bad for my seller. And during that consult, I had to do the best to stay positive because I don't think at the time she realized the condition her house was in. She was an out of state investor. I think she bought it sight unseen. I'm not sure if she ever did inspections then, but the house was bad. It was in bad shape. And I had to point out the positives that, like, this is a changing neighborhood. It's not changing as fast as we'd like it to, but and at the end, what it came down to, like literally, and this was way past listing appointment, but to stay on that positive note, when we got the final offer and had discovered that a major element of this house wasn't working, I had to say to her, do you want to go into the new year hanging on to this, or do you want to go in the new year with at least some of your money back and moving forward? And so sometimes that's the positive spin. It's not positive about the property, but it's a, hey, you're in a kind of shit situation right now. This is how I can help you move back into a positive situation. Are you willing to do that? And I know
Mhm.
I'm very comfortable with saying, I know this isn't what you want me to tell you. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but this is the reality. And just find that positive.
Mhm.
Because sometimes the properties we sell, like Aaron had one a couple months ago, literally like one of the pipes, I don't remember if it was during a storm or something, cut loose and there was just water flowing through the basement like a river. And the owner, instead of fixing it, said, "I'll just call the city and turn the water off. We'll sell it." And it was like, but she had to have that conversation too about price because,
That's not really how that
right?
works.
Because he had overpaid for it. He'd had a friend live in there for a couple years, never pay rent, not a dollar in rent, and destroy the house. And now it was worth less than what he bought it for. And so she had to talk to him and be like, I know you're going to lose like 30 grand and that's really sucks, but at least you're not out 130 grand still. We're at least getting some of this back for you
Right.
and you can reinvest it somewhere else. So sometimes that's how you have to maintain the positive. It's not always, oh my God, I love the deck or whatever. Like sometimes it's more situational than it is actually about the house, if that makes sense.
Well, and that goes into like listening and the communication part of it too, because where there's a saying like you don't listen to respond, you listen to understand, because there could be, we're talking about listing properties. So the high side of this house, say for example, could be 350, but they're already under contract for a house out of state and they need to sell in order to buy. We will get more buyers in here at 325, right? Like that kind of thing. So you have to know like what they're wanting to do, what they're looking for in an agent, what they're hoping to do as far as showings. Maybe it's an elderly couple and they have a hard time getting like out of the house quickly and they need more heads up. Like you need to be taking these things into consideration while they're talking to you so you can respond with helpful information. You know what I mean? Like I have a listing right now and we've talked about it several times, but it's so funny. They're almost worried to go under contract because she's convinced that the house comes off the market. You know what I mean? And I'm like, it will say, depending on what website you look at, under contract or pending or something along those lines, but I'm not going to stop marketing your house. We can even still allow
Right.
showings. I want to get you a backup offer. You know what I mean? But it's like it's just so funny the things that cuz they're not in this business every day, you know? So for her to say we accept an offer and that's it, like unless it closes, we're starting from scratch. That's not how that
Right. Or
works.
like
And same thing with showings. Like they
I have a
go
client,
ahead.
the listing right now, she made me push listing a week, which was fine. It actually worked better for me. But because she was going to be out of town, or she's moving in with a friend once we sell until she finds what she wants to buy. And she was convinced that the weekend we listed it, it would sell and she'd have to move. And that friend was going to be out of town that weekend. And I was like, whoa, no, that's not how that works. And I was like, we can still push it a week because that'll actually work better with timing and things. But the way this will work, and I had to explain to her, and I said, and we can tell them. They're going to ask me. A good agent is going to ask me what you need, and I'm going to tell them the longest closing stretch possible so that you have plenty of time and you don't feel rushed. And we got it for her. Like we went under
Mhm.
contract last week, 2 weeks ago. No, I don't know, 4 days after it went live. Um, and our due diligence doesn't end until the 29th. And so we went, yeah, it's not even on this calendar. Yeah, we went active May 3rd. We went under contract May 7th, which would have been May 5th, but she wanted to wait 2 days and let everyone who had showings see it. Our due diligence ends May 29th. We're not closing until June 28th to give her that time. So yeah, that communication, like that was her big concern was she was going to be rushed. And I was like, no, 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 no. We're not doing that.
You don't have to be.
Mm-mm.
Right. It's a personal It's a personal thing. Just like with like here in North Carolina with due diligence money. Well, how much is required for due diligence money? Nothing. Nothing's required. What do you want?
Right?
What do you want to offer? Like that kind of thing. And it's just like, well, is it 1%? Is it 3%? Is it like how much you have to offer? And I was like, it varies. Like, are you confident that this is the house? No matter what that home inspection comes back at, this is the house, right? Like that it can change your perspective so dramatically. So I feel like just knowing where your clients are at or where your prospective clients are at or is only going to prepare you to give them the information that is going to be most important to them, because like you said with the timeline, maybe another agent didn't even ask about the timeline and now she's stressed about thinking she has to move the day that it goes on the market because nobody
Right.
asked, you
Right.
know
Or
and that sets you apart because she's like, oh wow, Alyssa really cares to like make sure that I'm taken care
right.
of
Or like she
in this
doesn't
situation.
do email. Like she does it, but digital signature's not going to happen. So I've set it up with my TC and with the buyer's agents, let them know if this is something urgent, I will get it to her faster. Otherwise, we will be meeting every Thursday to review whatever paperwork, and that's part of like this 60 days. Like I built in the time so she's comfortable, so I can take 2 hours every Thursday and go sit with her and go over everything that's come in so she's comfortable in this. I also think like storytelling for objections or for questions, like you can say, hey, in this one, like we're doing with you guys right now, this is what I experienced, this is what I did.
My
Right,
client.
my client, or, and
Right.
if you are a new agent and you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have clients, talk to people in your firm,
Use your
talk to
team.
other agents, lean on your team. What was their experience and how did they handle it? And say, well, when my team has experienced this or when my firm has experienced this, this is how we've handled it. So that you're leaning on their experience, because you don't have it yet. But
Mm-hmm.
if you say that, then they will know, okay, well, it's not just her or him or them. It's that person, this agent, has a strong team, firm, whatever behind them to help them navigate this. So definitely lean into
Mm-hmm.
stories. And trust me, after a couple closings, you are going to have stories for sure.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Um. So for seller consultations, as far as like tracking and percentage wise of like how many I sign at the listing appointment, I do sign a good amount. Like when I go out there and like I have a pretty good, like this is going to be it, I print everything and I bring it with me. But for those situations, because I'm kind of like a slower churn, like I'm not usually the one that sets the appointment the first time that I contact them, that kind of thing. Like the follow up here, the fortune is in the follow up. That's what we're told. So following up with sellers is imperative because I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, oh yeah, no, we interviewed this person and kept looking, but that first person never even reached back out. You know what I mean? They went, they did the listing appointment, they didn't get the listing, and they never tried again. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like knowing how motivated they are, and again, talking about timeline, if you know that they're going to make a decision to list in the next week or two, like I would be reaching out every day.
Mm-hmm. And
Every
for
day.
sure,
Is it annoying?
at a
I mean,
minimum, would be sending a handwritten thank you card. It would be in the mail that night. If you want a ninja move, there, and if this, you also have to have a runway for this of time. There's an app, and I can't think of the name of it. I use it to send, like when I'm on vacation, to send postcards, but I've also done it for listings. Snap a picture of the house.
is it
No,
postable?
it's, oh,
Postable does something like that too. It's like a postcard and you can like
yeah, I'd
send
have
it
to look it up. I don't remember the name
from
of
the
it,
app.
but I've used it before, and it's not post something. It's in my phone somewhere. But like I said, I use it on vacations. One of my pictures from vacation, boom, 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 it mails a postcard to my niece and nephew. Done. Like, and it's personal. So I've done the same thing for listings. Take a cute picture of the house, or maybe me in front of the house, and say, hey, thank you so much, whatever I would normally put. And then it does that and it shows, oh, like, yeah, okay, that's a little extra other than just a thank you note on your
Mm-hmm.
um stationery. That, like, that to me, like, that is
Hmm.
a huge part. Or like,
Yep. And you can,
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was just going to say that the other thing that I do too is like for follow up after like handwritten note or something along those lines is to say, hey, like I reached out to an agent friend of mine, a lender, and I do those things and say, hey, like, do you know anybody looking for a 3-2 in Conover? It's got like 1,600 square feet, like that kind of thing. Because then I'm like, I know like 4 agents that have buyers that fit this
Hmm.
criteria. So whenever you're ready to get started, I've got your first showings lined
Right.
up.
Exactly. Exactly. And stay on top of that. Like, give them the feedback of, okay, guys, I know we met 2 weeks ago and you're not ready to make a decision, but I want to let you know what's changed in the market. Like, the days on market is getting shorter. That's really good for you. So if we price it correctly, or days on market is getting longer. I know you guys have a quick timeline. So if that's part of your decision making, then we should probably get it listed sooner. Give those stats also need to be like personal to what you've learned about them. Again, if they're numbers people, we're throwing numbers at them. If they're emotional people, we're throwing emotions at them. Like, hey, school is starting in 2 months. Now's the perfect time to list for those families who want to, and you have to be careful how you phrase it so that you don't get hit with fair housing violations. But if it is the little old lady who wants a cute family move in, that's one of the things. Like, school starts in August. If, it's June, we need to get listed to make sure this house is available for family, whatever. Um, I
Hmm.
definitely think I think that is just as, if not more important than the presentation. Especially if you throw in a personal touch. Like, if you're there and they're like, oh, we're not going to make a decision for a couple weeks because our son has a lacrosse tournament out of town and that's, we'll be gone for the whole week. So call them after the tournament and say, hey,
You better ask how that game
or
went.
even better, Google it and be like, hey, noticed you guys came in second in the tournament. Congratulations. Like, that must have been the perfect ending
Hmm.
for your vacation in Myrtle Beach. Like, that personal touch will do more for you, in my opinion, than any little spreadsheet, anything,
Anything.
presentation you bring. Like, paying attention and remembering.
Yep.
Now, none
Absolutely.
of this,
But, oh, are you going to, I was going to say, but,
but none of, sorry, there's something going on outside. None of this will guarantee that you're going to get the listing. I don't remember who said this, but I've seen this meme somewhere. Um, you could be the sweetest peach in the orchard. Someone just doesn't like peaches. That's okay. Like, it's fine. So, but you
Mhm.
have to learn to handle that rejection. I think a great conversation, like, and I've done this in my professional life when I was in corporate America. The first time I didn't get my job in fiber ops, I asked the guy. I like took 20 minutes, cried my eyes out because I wanted that job more than anything. And then I called him back and I said, hey, Brian, I would really appreciate, would you mind giving me some feedback? I know I was in the final two. What was the determining factor? And is there anything I can improve for next time if this position becomes available again or something similar? And he was like, oh, honestly, he was like, it came down to experience. You've never done all this reporting thing, stuff like this. That girl literally showed up with, she was a Victoria's Secret store manager, and she showed up with reports to show how she handled her reporting. That was the only difference. You
Mhm.
know what happened? 2 weeks later, he called me and said, I have
Yeah.
another
Well,
position open. Do you want it? It's your, like, you don't even have to interview again.
do you want it?
So
Hmm.
ask for that feedback.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Last week, I actually, I sold a piece of land for this couple, and they've been wanting to move for, gosh, it's been 3 years that I've been following up with these people and like wishing them a Merry Christmas and sending them cards and all the things. And last week, their house came on the market. And let me tell you, it was 1 week after the last time I'd called and said, hey, actually, this house that we were watching to sell had sold at this kind of thing. So I'm like, Christopher, what happened? And he said, well, so and so. I met him, and he's really into, he has a forge in his basement, and he does like knife making and all the things. and he was like, I met him somewhere. We started to be like really good friends. And then he's like, I told him that we were going to be moving in, found out that he's a real estate agent, and I decided to let him give it a go. Is that the answer that I wanted to have? No. But it was nothing against me personally. Right. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, there was nothing, because I'm not going to be making knives with him. That's not who I am, you know? And that was, again, it all boils down to the best decision that they think that they're making for themselves. So, does it sting? Every single time. Every single time. I feel sorry for myself for a minute, and then we go back, because nobody has 100% like success rate.
I don't think so.
If they do, they're lying about it. It makes no sense.
I also, like, if you get that rejection, still communicate with them. Still send the birthday cards. Like, find out where they're moving to. Mm-hmm. If they're selling, like, well, obviously they're selling. We're doing listing appointments, but like, send the birthday cards. If you're using like reminder media stuff, update the address. You never know, because they may have chosen someone else and had a bad experience, and they're like, damn, we should have gone with Brenna because we know what it's like to work with her, and that was not the same experience. Because I can tell you, that's why I became a realtor, because my realtor sucked. And it's, you know, a huge thing. I would never, no. They're not in the business anymore, but for obvious reasons, but they're not going to, if they have a poor experience, I'm not saying they will, that person might be a lovely agent, but don't feel like, okay, I'm turning everything off with them. No, because, or they may have a lovely experience with an agent, but their friends, they know wouldn't sit well with that person. Their family wouldn't work well with that person, and they know you'd be a better match. Keep the communication open, because otherwise you're cutting yourself off for future opportunities. Like, I truly believe that. Like, don't give up.
Right.
I mean, don't be as maybe aggressive. Don't be as consistent, but still do the Christmas cards, the reminder media, your email campaign. Like, keep them in there. If they don't want it, they'll turn it off. They'll let you know. Like,
yep, that's right. That's like email subscriptions. Like, if they are really unhappy, they'll unsubscribe. That's fine. We move on, because there's other people. There is other fish in the sea. There's plenty of fish in the sea.
Absolutely. Okay? And I think the most important thing is, like, learn from it. Learn from your rejections. Learn from, and maybe it's a mistake you made. Like, it wasn't in real estate once, but I lost a client once for a little side gig I had going because I texted the wrong Melissa. And it was something political between us that we agreed on, and that other Melissa did not. And, you know, oops.
Oh,
so
no.
It was interesting. So just leverage that experience and use it to improve and keep moving forward. Don't take that rejection and then say, oh, I'm bad at this, I'm leaving the business. I mean, unless you really are bad at this and you need to leave the business, then okay, good luck. But grow with it. If you're not willing to grow and learn, you're going to be leaving the business anyway. So I think that's my number one piece of advice in today's episode is take your rejection, take the loss, get the feedback, learn from it, and move forward. I'm not going to say move on, move forward with improvement. That's my number one tip. And I hope you're doing...
Oh my gosh. All right. With that, we are going to... I was going to say, we will see you next week. We will see you
guys next week. And next week, we are going to be talking about, I think, depending on what order we post these in, hiring a transaction coordinator and what that experience is like and how it helps your business.
We love it. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. We just finished another episode of Contracts and Chaos, but believe me, the chaos does not stop here. So check out the show notes for our email address and where to follow us on socials, and we will see you next week.